Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, June 16th, and gosh, it's just coming on 8:30 in the morning, and we've already been out here for hours watching the sunrise and doing our morning garden tours, sitting out here having coffee, so that, we love coming out here and taking tours to see what's happening, in the different light. Everything is so amazingly beautiful and growing so happily. I have so many Kellogg's breakfast, pineapple tomatoes, Dr. Witchy's a mortgage lifter growing. This tomato season is turning out to be the best ever, and I absolutely love these raised beds behind me. But something that I wanted to show you as we walk back here to the main garden, these tomatoes are doing incredible. Last year was the first year that I grew Brandywine tomatoes, and I had explained in previous videos that when we did get the tomato, it was incredible. It was a beautiful heirloom tomato with beautiful fluted shoulders, and it was meaty and juicy, but not seedy or gelatinous. It was incredible, everything you wanted a tomato to be. However, the plant itself really suffered early. It developed early black spot and blight, and it sent disease through my tomato garden. And, it was very sad. So we only got a few tomatoes. But like I said, what we did get was absolutely incredible. So I said, I'm going to try again. You may have all heard this story already. I'm going to try again, but I'm going to isolate my Brandywine tomatoes. Now, I also went ahead and purchased German pink tomato seeds, not realizing that they were also a potato leaf variety. Now, a lot of people say that the potato leaf varieties are difficult because they do get early blight and they send disease all through the garden. I think I might have cracked the code to healthy potato leaf tomatoes. Now, I grew them the same way as I did everything else. When all of my tomato seeds were ready to be potted up, I put them in a bigger pot with worm casting, bone meal, blood meal, a slow release fertilizer, and some Tums for calcium. So I went ahead and planted my potato leaf varieties, and I'm going to give you a close-up because these are the most beautiful tomatoes, and they're everything you want a tomato plant to be. So I think I figured out why they get early blight and what it is that you need to do to ensure that you grow healthy potato leaf varieties free from blight and black spot. Let's take a deeper dive into potato leaf tomatoes and see what the secret is. So you see this plant here, you guys, for those of you who are aware, this is borage being happily visited by bumblebees. It's got honeybees, it's got wasps. Every pollinator loves the borage. Now this is a fresh plant from seed that I sowed earlier this year, direct sowed into the garden. And, as we discussed, the benefits of borage is incredible. But when borage starts to develop any kind of spots or wilting, I think it sends off some sort of a chemical that causes a decay. Now, over here we have some Bonnie Best and Dr. Witchy's growing. There's no borage on this side of the beds. This Dr. Witchy's is incredible. There's beautiful big tomatoes growing on it. My Bonnie Best over there is doing great. Now, on the other side of this panel here, we also had a very large borage shrub, I'll call it, which was a volunteer from last year. And I don't know if you can see, it's faded out and it's aging, so it has, some spots on it, some colors, and this is where I've noticed that some problems start to happen. So this borage was so big that it started to really envelop my Bonnie Best plant here, which, even though it has tomatoes, you'll see it's kind of naked because I just pulled off all of this black spot and some early blight. I think it came from being touched by the borage. Now, I think any plant that is touched by borage or a decaying flower, we already know any tomato that is, too surrounded without good ventilation is going to get sick. But I'm connecting this particular problem to the borage. So if you have borage growing around your tomatoes at the base, any flower, you want to really start to prune it away earlier. Now, over here, we're going to look at the most pristine potato leaf variety of tomato that I've personally, have ever seen. Look at these leaves in comparison to my hand. Really beautiful. I'm going to take you around to the other side where we can see different lighting. But look at the beautiful, this is Brandywine pink. And oh my goodness, there's so many tomatoes, you guys. I have so many tomatoes. What a blessing. And these beautiful healthy plants. Now look at the size of these blossoms. They are gigantic. So I know that these are going to be big tomatoes. And the leaves, I mean, it's giving itself this wonderful natural shading. This is German pink, and German pink is just big and beautiful and wonderful. I have tons of tomatoes. There is no disease on this plant. We have a little bit of, some spent leaves that are starting to happen, but those leaves formed back in March. So, they're coming off with normal pruning. But overall, this, I think, is cracking the code for growing the healthiest potato leaf variety that you can. It's very simple. You have to put up a sign on it that says, "Don't touch me." I'm doing minimal pruning. I'm only taking leaves that are spent from the bottom, pruning from the bottom up. I'm not taking off too many of the suckers. I'm keeping it trellised up and trussed properly, but I'm not toying with it. Now, if you see at the bottom, I don't have really any beneficial plants going on here, so it's totally ventilated. It's it's doing so healthy, but I think the key is just don't touch it. Leave it alone and make sure it doesn't have any extra flowers or plants around the bottom of it causing you problems. We did have a little bit of an aphid situation happen, but it wasn't anything crazy. We released some of our ladybugs onto it, and the ladybug promptly cleaned up an entire plant of aphids. And I came out this morning, and the aphids that were there are now gone. But I do have some marigolds that I transplanted. This was a volunteer, so it wilted a little bit, but it is coming back. But overall, you guys, look at all of these tomatoes. I'm so excited. We have some fasciated blossoms, some cat facing that went on. This is very normal heirloom tomato behavior. Lots and lots of blossoms happening. The plants are uptaking water properly. Their stems are in really good condition. We're getting beautiful fluted shoulders on these tomatoes. Oh my goodness. Now, to grow a healthy potato leaf tomato, I think is difficult for some people. So here's the key, you guys. Like I said, cracking the code. Don't touch me. Keep it open at the bottom. Make sure there's nothing too big touching it. Now these cosmos over here, which were volunteers, are on the edge, but I'm not letting them grow, up through the bed. So they'll stay on the outside, and I'll keep them pruned. And I'm going to keep this borage here pruned. Look at all the bees. The bees just love this. So we can make sure that nothing's touching it, and it has really, really great ventilation. These are some of the biggest blossoms I've seen yet on tomato plants. That one is actually one of the smaller of the varieties that I have. But this trellis is up at an angle where its main pillar here is actually facing east. So it's getting southeast exposure and then south at an angle. So, and then when the western sun comes, it's getting another angle. So I don't know if that was a benefit as well, but I'm exploring how the angle of your tomato trellises affect growth, disease, circulation, and all that sort of stuff. Oh gosh, let me get you into the light here. This cosmos here is a volunteer from last year. This is from the Sensation blend from Botanical Interest. Incredible. Now overall, the tomatoes are a dream this year. Hungarian hearts are producing prolifically. There's trusses of them everywhere. Now, for those of you who are still just learning your tomato plant language, trussing is a word that has a twofold definition when it comes to this. The act of trussing your tomatoes is clipping them to a trellis and securing them so that they can grow. The word trussing also refers to a set or a cluster of tomatoes like this. This right here is considered a truss of tomatoes. This is Hungarian heart, pink ox heart. Doing really well, but it's got a little bit of black spot on it that, you know, I'm pruning off promptly. But we have to make sure that we stay on top of it because the humidity is about to come. Look at Abe Lincoln. Oh my goodness, you guys. Look at that fluted shoulder. Oh, I cannot wait. So this is the best that Abe Lincoln is doing ever. I think this is my 3rd year with Abe Lincoln, and I think my 4th year with Classic Beef. Last year we had, you know, some issues with Classic Beef, and it is acting out again. We got black spot and early blight starting, but I already pulled a bunch of it off. Overall, though, the plant is healthy and the trusses are forming, the blossoms are opening. But something that I want you to notice, I have an entire hedge of cosmos on the other side of it. So Classic Beef and Abe Lincoln is also suggesting to not be touched. So I'm going to have to prune away all of my leaves to make sure that they're not touching. Yeah, look at that. So we got to get under there, make sure we get this early disease off, because like I said, everything, the weather's about to change here, so it's probably about to get scary. Now, what I do have growing in here also are numerous varieties of basil, cosmos, and buckwheat, and marigolds. So this is going to be a French marigold. This is buckwheat just starting to come up. Purple ruffles, basil, highly fragrant. Some Thai sweet basil. The minute you touch it and brush up on it, it just emits this beautiful fragrance through the garden. So that's helping to keep the pests down. I'm also growing an African marigold, which will probably grow 5 to 6 feet tall, and that's going to help with things also. So once your plants become a little bit weak and they have some black spot or some early blight, it also opens the door for insects. So early in the morning is a great time, you guys, to come out and inspect all of your tomato plants to see what they need, what changes you need to make. Start educating yourself on what your garden is telling you, because she is the greatest teacher of all. Look at this truss of Bonnie Best. Incredible. Mouth-watering already, you guys, right? Parks Whoppers. Oh, I love it. Now, something else that happens with this borage and all of this beautiful cosmos that you see in front of us here, the reason that I have all of these flowers to begin with, besides talking about deterring detrimental insects, and attracting beneficial insects, of course, is to create a living mulch. Now, I want you to look down and see all the shade that is happening along the base of my tomato plants. My soil is shaded, but it is ventilated. So it's important that you grow wide leaf plants that create a little bit of a canopy and a shade over your soil, because it will help to prevent drying out. And you will water less. And you'll realize that when you do water, that everything percolates much more evenly and the plants get a good drink. So if this is your first time here, you may not know that I've done many videos about where these flowers came from. These are all cosmos that were volunteers from last year, and I just pulled them out of the ground and transplanted them in with my tomato plants. Now they are getting a little bit tall, and as I said, these plants don't really want to be touched. So pruning has to happen now so we can make sure that the most important thing that happens here is that the relationship between our beneficial flowers and our vegetables stays healthy. So you never want to introduce anything that's going to bring disease into the garden. So we have to make sure that this relationship here remains healthy. Make sure everything gets pruned. Again, come out early in the morning or at golden hour, you guys, and survey your garden. Have a close look at everything and listen to it. You want to do this at a time of the day where you don't have too much interruption. You can have some peace. Maybe it's over a cup of coffee or, you know, a lemonade in the evening, and you can look at everything and listen. Just listen to the garden. It will tell you. It may need a little pruning. It may need a little bit of, you know, if you're seeing blossom end rot, you might need to put some Tums down into the soil to make sure it's getting good calcium uptake, making sure that all of your leaves are healthy, making sure that you have good shade from your leaves. It's very, very important. Our weather has been dry, so it's been good for the plants and their overall health because the disease is staying minimal, but all of that is about to change. So this was, like, I think probably the last beautiful morning we're going to have for we don't know how long. The heat dome is about to bear down here in New Jersey as well as the most of the country, and you know, our hearts always go out to everyone who's suffering from catastrophic weather events. And you know, I even sometimes feel bad making these videos and showing how beautiful everything is, because we acknowledge that there are people out there who have not only had their gardens blown away, they've had their homes blown away. And this is a luxury, to be able to come out here in the morning and peruse around for 2 hours and survey everything that you've grown. But it is very important, so I want to acknowledge to everyone who's going through it right now. We hope and wish the very best for you, and that soon everything with the earth will balance out at some point, and we can learn how to adapt. Because when the heat dome comes, everything here that you see might change. Last year we had plants melt in the scorch of the sun. So we know that when it gets too hot, the blossoms start to drop off. So once your blossoms drop off, you never actually get tomatoes out of it. So right now we have a ton of tomatoes that formed, and there's a ton of blossoms, but if the blossoms fall off, of course, we'll have a gap in tomato production, and we're always hoping that we're going to have tomatoes through October so that we can pull them off while they're green and let them ripen into December. Last year was a tough year, and while we had a little bit of a break this spring, it's been beautiful and our tomato production is better than ever. The heat dome is inevitable, and it's really going to get at us this year. So explore ideas like shade cloth, learning when to adapt for dry conditions and humid conditions. As I said before, I always prune according to conditions, and with this heat, there is some humidity coming and some storms will come. So there's no doubt my beautiful tomato leaves are going to start to suffer. So there's going to be a big pruning that's going to happen, and that's going to affect the exposure on the plants and things getting too hot. So anyway, you guys, that was just a quick look and a suggestion at cracking the code for potato leaf tomato varieties and what might be causing yours to have disease. Remember, don't touch me, good ventilation, good sun exposure, proper shading, and a good feeding during the first up potting, and then when you put them in the ground, you want to also plant them deep and give them a big feeding a second time then, and hopefully that will help you to grow healthier potato leaf varieties. So thanks for visiting our garden with us today, you guys. We sure hope to see you in the next video.